Are you
Abby?
asking? Oh,
Yes. Sorry,
okay.
I just wanted to make sure everything was all right. Well, we're going to start off by um, stating our names and our affiliation with the college. So my name is Anise Coopwood. I'm a senior and a history major. You want to go next, Abby?
Yep. My name's Abby. I'm a freshman and I'm a graphic design major.
Where are you from, Abby?
I'm from Hannibal, Missouri.
Hannibal?
Yes.
Good friend of mine's Joe Dan is from Hannibal. He went to school there too. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm Gabe Brown. My affiliation is college. I play football here. I'm a freshman. My major's undecided right now, and I'm from Olympia, Washington.
Olympia, Washington. You come a long way to play football there, huh?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. And it's good you got undecided major. That means everything is open to you. Okay? So don't let anybody take you in a different direction. What you're doing is exploring your options, okay? And that's what you need to do. All right? Well, good.
That's great. So I got your bio that you sent.
Okay.
It was super amazing. I wanted to start off asking you a little bit about where you come from, your family, and how you were brought up.
Okay. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. Okay. My family is, my mother raised seven of us basically by herself. My parents were divorced when I was very young. And at that time, people would farm their sons and daughters off to other relatives when the burden became too much for them. My mother was determined not to do that. And she kept us all together. And she worked 2 jobs and sometimes 3 jobs. There was only one time that I could remember when she wasn't employed and she went on what they call general assistance, which we know as welfare, okay? And she was on it for like about 6 months, and it was killing her because she didn't believe in accepting things, that it's important to work for things yourself. And after the 6 months, she got a job, she got off of it, and then we moved on in her life. Because my father had left and went back to Mississippi where he was from, I watched my mother, and I'm the second oldest in the family out of 7. But I watched my mother and how hard she was working. And I was just determined that she shouldn't have to work that hard. And so from the time I was 14 years old, I had a job of some kind where I work. I never asked my mother for, well, I take that back. I was getting ready to say I never asked her for a penny, but I did. I made the basketball team in my freshman year in my high school. And I talked to my mother that I needed to like 25 cents a week to take the late bus home after practice right in the beginning. And if she could help me, and she said she could. And after the first second day of practice, I went and asked her for it, and she said that she didn't have any money. And so I went in my bedroom and I just sat on the floor, and I know what she was doing to take care of all of us. So the next day I went back to school and I told the coach that I was quitting the team. And he wanted to know why, but I really didn't want to tell that man about my situation in my life. And so, I don't remember what I told him, but I went back to working at a YMCA washing dishes. And that's what I did. I had some type of job throughout high school. I have a younger brother who was a freshman, I think, when I was a senior, and he made the basketball team. So he was on our state championship team, and I funded him everything he needed. I tried to help him to get that, and I never thought anything about it. And it was like maybe 20 years later, when I lived out in Las Vegas, he came out to visit, and all of us was grown, of course. And he told me how he remembered me helping him out when he was in high school. Never thought he would remember that because I never thought anything about it. But I had no plans to go to college. As you notice, I have 3 different degrees in about 6, 7 different majors, but I had no plans to do not one of them at all. I worked in a steel mill when I was a senior in high school, and I worked a full shift. I went to school in the morning, and then I worked from 2 to 11 at night, and I did that. And when I finished high school, I continued to work in the steel mill, and I'm thinking that I was trying to do stuff to help my mother, not thinking about school at all. And there was a man that a friend of ours told me about that helped young boys find jobs and stuff like that. So I said, well, maybe there's something else I can do besides just working in a steel mill. So I went to his office, and it was in the projects of Chicago. It was in the project area. And I went there and I was sitting there talking to this fellow who was waiting for him also. And I was the last person he saw that night. And I saw him at 7:30. He told me to come on in. The office closed at 7. And we were together until 10:30 that night. And he was telling me that the best thing I could do for my family was to go and get an education. And so this was in August, so the second week in August. So he gave me some applications for some schools. And I said, well, isn't it too late to get into college? He said, no, you just look and see which one you're interested in, and then we'll see what we can do. So I looked at one of them, and it was a school called Culver-Stockton College. Well, the fellow that I was sitting to in the lobby, he was like a junior or senior, the junior, I believe, and he was trying to help the school get more students of color there. So he came to talk to this man, Mr. Purnell, about helping him to get students to come down there. And that's the only one I remember. I remember the school in Wisconsin and another one, I think, in Michigan. But I didn't know anything about college at all. Okay, so I told him this one at Culver-Stockton College. And the following week, I went down there with my application for admission and my financial aid forms in my hand. I got down there the first day the school started. And I remember sitting outside the admissions office, and it said on there, what do you want to major in? I had no idea since I had no plans on going to college. I was definitely undecided, Gabe, but so I didn't know what I went in. But I remember I liked accounting when I was in high school. Okay, it was called bookkeeping then, but I liked that better than math and some other things. So I just put business down. Okay, and so I was supposed to be a business major, but I took courses in sociology and psychology. I was concerned about what was happening in our society and why people treated people a certain way. So in my junior year, my advisor said, you know, if you took another class in these other areas, you could have a triple major. And I remember asking her, what is a triple major? And so what I did, I took a class. So I graduated from Culver-Stockton in 4 years with a bachelor's degree in business administration, sociology, and psychology. And I went back to Chicago looking for a job in business because I still thought I was a business person. And I couldn't find anything for about a month. And it was ironic because that was the first time since I was 14 years old that I didn't have a job, okay? And even at Culver-Stockton College, I was too late to apply for financial aid. So I had to clean up Wood Hall. I worked there in the evening time, and I had to stack books in the library, okay? So I was doing menial work, but I was there. And so from someone who was just taking the books up and stacking them at that time to my senior year, I was in charge of the library. I was the one who locked the doors and did those types of things. And so when we look at our lives, we never know where we're going to go and what's going to happen to us. But what I always tell students, all you got to do is stay on the path. Okay, you don't know what's going to come your way. Just stay on the path. And even if you don't know, you want to do something in your life. And you stay on the path, and the people that you meet when you're going down that path, it makes such a big difference in your life. So that was I went back to Chicago for a year. I went to see Mr. Purnell, the man who sent me down there, and told him I was thinking about joining the Air Force. And I was explaining to him since I was 14, this was the first time, I got a degree in 3 majors that I haven't had a job. And he said, well, listen, and I interviewed for things in business. I just didn't feel it. And, I was doing that. He said, well, I'm going to have you work here with me. And he had a college placement service that helped get students into college and help them to understand financial aid. So he said, I'm going to have you work here with me. He said, but there's other things you need to do in your life. He said, so I'm going to have you work here for a year. And then I want you to start looking for other things. So he set me on a path that I never turned away from. My whole field is student development, student success, and student initiative. And that's what I've done, from being a counselor in his office to being a director, an assistant director, a dean, an executive director, a vice president in 2 colleges, and an educational consultant. I've been blessed throughout my life because I've tried to give something to other people and to look at that. I said there were 7 of us, and three of my brothers, well, two of my brothers and one of my sisters were incarcerated, okay, from time to time in my life. But I always looked at my mother and saw what she was trying to do, and I was determined not to do anything that was going to make her feel sad in her life. I tried to drop out of Culver-Stockton twice, okay, and I was going to go back home and just try to help her and do some stuff, and she wouldn't have it. And I had twin brothers and other people, but she wouldn't have it at all. And so I made the best decision because of her. She passed away now, but I think about her all the time. Okay, I can go on, but anything else, we could just roll through there.
Well, I want to say, forgive me. I just realized we all introduced ourselves and I didn't give you the opportunity to.
Okay.
So could you please state who you are? You've already talked a little bit about, what you've done, all the crazy, shouldn't say crazy, sorry, amazing things, wrong word, you've done. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Well, let's do this now. You have my bio. My life has been helping other people, so I always have a hard time talking about me. So why don't you pick a couple of things out your bio, my bio, and introduce me by whatever you think is important is there.
Well, this is Dr. Quincy Moore. He has been the Vice President for Student Success for many colleges all over the U.S., from Florida all the way down to Arizona. From what I gathered, because you just sent it to us, so I skimmed it really quick.
Right.
You have your BA in business. And so I wrote down a few things. I know that you were raised by your mother and you have 6 siblings and you're the only one who graduated high school. But since we have the bio, I am going to encourage any watchers to look at it. It's astounding, really inspiring. I was looking at it, I was like, wow, I hope I can achieve all of this. So did you have anything else you wanted to add before I ask the next question?
My life has been about service, and I realize how important that is to try to give to others and try to make a difference in other people's lives. And to me, that's what I've always done. And even in the point now, I tell people I'm still trying to decide what I want to be when I grow up. But until then, my life is always going to be about trying to help others and try to make a difference in other people's lives. One of the things, although I've worked in colleges and universities all over the country, the one thing that I did that I really think a lot about is the fact that outside of my jobs, and I never got paid for this, I went around the country and did workshops on graduate education. I developed a workshop called Demystifying the Myth of Graduate Education. And I developed that because when I went away to graduate school, I thought about, I'm supposed to write this book about everything I'm supposed to know about a certain subject. They call it a dissertation. I called it some crazy book, okay? And I decided, and when I first got on campus, I need to look up in the library and see what this is. And I went to the library, and the school that I was at had dissertations from everybody who was there. And I kept looking through them, and I said, well, this can't be a real dissertation. This don't seem to be as difficult as what I thought. So after a while, I wrote down a dissertation, and I called it an anatomy of a dissertation. And you're going to write papers all the time, okay? I said a dissertation is just 5 papers. Your first paper is introduction. The way I thought in my own mind, okay, what the hell you want to talk about? Okay, what's your subject, all right? The next paper, and this is from looking at all those dissertations and those books. The second one is the review of the literature. So what has everybody else said about this one particular subject? The third one, your methodology. So are you going to do surveys, qualitative exam? What are you going to do to determine what you want? And the fourth paper was discussion in terms of what you found out. And the fifth one is the results, implications for further studies. Okay, and that's the part of the workshop that I do when I go around the country. I talk to people about that, how do you determine what your dissertation is, how do you look at it, and then the other part, which is just important, how do you fund it, how do you get funding to go to school, all right? And I didn't want to go to school at all, okay? I had no intention of getting a bachelor's degree, okay? And what you said, I got into business administration, sociology, and psychology, which I thought was a fluke. Well, when I worked with Mr. Purnell in Chicago for a year, a friend of ours decided we were going to go out to California. And we were driving past Las Vegas, and I saw they had a University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I thought to myself, I know they don't have real people that live in Las Vegas. I just thought people just flew in and gambled and took off. So we stopped at the university, met a man who was doing similar things to Mr. Purnell. He was director of student services in an Upward Bound program. And he talked us into staying overnight. And he said, well, listen, I need to hire you to come and work for me. And I said, I know you're joking. I said, because our mindset, there was girls waiting for us on the beach in California. And that's where we were going. Well, we went out to California. We met some people, not as many as we had projected, of course, as young men at that time. But I got back to Chicago and he called me up and said he got funded this program called Upward Bound. And he wanted me to come and be the associate director of the program. And I remember listening to him, and I was at my mother's house on a Saturday morning, and I said, who is this again? Okay, so we went through it, and that Saturday, that following week, I got in my little two-seat Carmen Ghia, and I drove from Chicago out to Las Vegas with a little television that I had bought when I was in college, and drove out to Vegas and spent 5 years there. While I was there, I was dating a young lady, and she was taking courses, working on a master's degree. She was a teacher. And I remember listening to the instructor when I went to pick her up, and he was saying some things, and I'm saying, that sounds crazy. And so what I realized is that I could go and get my master's degree, and it would only cost me $5 because I was working at the university. So I went on and did that and got my master's degree, and then I was set. I was loving Vegas, loved it with a passion, okay? And a friend of mine's called and said, when you going to come back and finish your education? And I explained to him, I have lucked up twice in this thing we call education. I said, I didn't plan to get a bachelor's degree or a master's. And I said, hey, I'm not even thinking about that. Students like you and your friends there was sitting in front of me at my office, and they said, well, Mr. Moore, you always talking to us about taking advantage of opportunities. That sounds like an opportunity. Now, when your students hit you with your stuff, it's hard sometimes, okay? So every time I would see them on campus, they said, well, when are you gonna go and finish up? So I decided to apply to this particular school, and I said, well, maybe they won't accept me, and I have a reason, because I really didn't want to leave Vegas. And they were just now starting their doctorate program there. And I said, well, I'm not interested in the program, but I wasn't interested in going back to school. I got accepted to the school, and I said, this is crazy. So I called them up and asked them if they could defer it for a year, okay? And they said they would defer it. And I said, great. So 2 months later, I received a letter in the mail from this particular school. And it said, not only did they defer it for a year, but they were awarding me a Patricia Harris Fellowship that paid for all my tuition. And they gave me a stipend of $800 a month. Plus, they were going to give me a 2-bedroom apartment. And I just had to sit there for a while, because sometimes you need to recognize if someone is more concerned about your life than you are, you need to process that. So I got on the phone and I called them, and I said, and this happened to be September, I said, I'll be there in August. And that's how I got to my doctoral program. You never know what's going to come your way. You just continue to do things that's important. And to me, that was one of them. So you look at your blessing. All right, back to you now. Okay.
No, that was great and so inspirational. I never even thought of things like that. If someone is more concerned than you are with your life,
Right.
You should process that. That is so important. And something I will definitely know for myself. So coming back to Culver-Stockton,
Okay.
you talked a little bit about you always wanted to make a difference in other people's lives. So I want to ask you, when you were on campus, what did you and your friends do? How were you guys involved? And did any of those individuals made a big impact in your life?
Well, two things. What I said about making a difference came after Culver-Stockton, okay? Because remember, I was a business major, okay? Not knowing, I just thought that that's what I was I took a lot of accounting courses, okay? Business law, accounting, and all that type of thing. So I'm thinking I'm going to be a business major. But then I took the courses, sociology and psychology, because I was always interested in looking around. I was quiet because I was looking around the way people interacted. And when I got there, it was the first year they had like 30 Afro-Americans there. Before then, they had, I think, about 8 there. So needless to say, this was a major change in the school and in the community. And our whole thing then, it wasn't so much individual stuff that we were doing, it's what we could do as a group. Okay, our Black Affairs Caucus, we started that. We had we called it our Black Room, but it was a room in the basement of the well, it was an outside door, but that's where we gathered. We talked about what we wanted to do. We started Black History Month and a Black Week and doing things like that, and we got together to bring speakers down, and we go pick them up in Quincy at the train station and have a lot of activities during that period of time. And I remember one of our speakers' name was Margaret Burroughs, and she was the founder of DuSable Museum. And she wrote this poem, and she was a poet also, but she was the founder of DuSable Museum in Chicago. And I remember it, and I remember it to this day. It was called "What Should I Tell My Children Who Are Black?" And it was like, what should I tell my children who are Black, or what it means to be a captive in its dark skin? What should I tell my dear ones, fruit of my looms, or how much they had suffered? And because she went on, and I remember, and we were just mesmerized by her. And, you know, we had a number of people to come down through the time we were there. But one of our major focus was look at Black History Month and let the school know we wanted to have these people come down and for them to fund it. And that was a major focus. So our association was as a group in terms of what we wanted to do, because Culver-Stockton had no Blacks. They had a handful, you know, but it was the largest number was 8. And that was before the 30 of us came down. And so we wanted to make some changes. And this was in the late 70s, 60s and early 70s. And there was changes going on everywhere. But we wanted to address some things that we were concerned about. So it was a group mindset and not an individual mindset in terms of where we at. We would go out and support the football team because they had a lot of us on the team and everything, but we would always support each other in terms of what we were doing. And, you know, there were some people that deviated from it, but it was about a mindset, what we thought was important. And we looked around and wanted to see what was going on around us. And we always talked about it and we discussed it. And to me, that was a major impact on where we were at. And then Ziegler Hall, I think it's still there, I'm not sure. Is that the one with the suites? No. Well, they had built this one dorm with suites in it, so 5 people could be together. And so me, my roommate, Rudy Brown, and 3 other folks, we got together and we lived together in this suite, okay? And so we were able to take classes together. And what I talked about us doing, I said, let's take the same classes so we can work together, okay, in terms of doing that. Now, you know, now they're doing that as a national thing in terms of people getting together and do things like that. And then our senior year, my roommate and I were the first Blacks, single people to live off campus in an apartment, because those had to be approved by the dean. And I remember going in and talking to the dean and letting them know that there was a rumor going around that no Blacks were going to ever be able to live off campus in terms of doing that. And I said, I think that's something that we need to squash. I said, because you know, we need to move on with that. Well, Rudy and my name were the 2nd and 3rd name on the list, okay? And so we were the first Blacks to live off campus that year in terms of doing stuff. So our mindset is the things that we could do that could help each other and to hopefully make it better for other people. And that's where we were. So in terms of the stuff that I've done, that came later on in my life when I was more knowledgeable and recognizing more things, or more important, when someone saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Yeah, sorry, I mixed that up. However, you talked about this being late 60s, early 70s, really a crucial period from the shift of the civil rights movement into the Black Power movement.
Right.
How was the social atmosphere on campus during this time?
The social atmosphere was, it was interesting because all we really had was each other in terms of doing stuff. And now when I was a sophomore, I ran as the vice president for student government, okay? And I was the first Black vice president of student government. And then I was junior class president. And then in my senior year, okay, I was not asked, but I was kind of appointed by the president and the vice president to be the chief justice of the honors court. Now, that didn't happen because we sat back. and didn't do anything, and we were just another body on campus. And then we had Millard Bondurant, who was one of my classmates, who was Mr. Everything in athletics. He played baseball, basketball, and football. And then they started the Hall of Fame there. And when they came out with it, I remember, I don't remember where I was living, but I looked at the people they had in there, and they didn't have him. And this was years later. And I tried to start a protest and said, this is crazy. Okay, he has more letters and more sports than anyone else than these other people. But for people who didn't know, they didn't pay no attention to him. Well, the next year he was in it. So everything we did was almost revolutionary. Okay, there was I think it was a human relations club, and you had some good people there. I think there was Mr. Holmes and Mr. Lee, who were two of the professors that was there, and they were in charge of trying to do something, trying to move it along. But everything was at a snail's pace for us. We wanted things to happen right away. Now we realized where we were, and the other part of it is the barbers didn't cut black people's hair, so they had nobody. That was never a thing they had to do, and I think that was the first time I grew a fro. Okay, when I was down there, in terms of doing that. But we made some changes in terms of how we were looked at, not only on the campus. Even when I was junior class president, I'd get together and we brought a jazz group from Quincy, Illinois, over to the college before a session. And we did a number of things that I think made a difference in terms of trying to do something. But the major thing was now a number of people left. We had a number of young ladies who went away and went to Southern and other colleges. But we had a state of mind that said, we're gonna finish what we start. And so those of us that graduated, and I often look at my pictures of us when we were in college, and whenever we get together, now we kind of talk about our years there, but we tried to do something that was going to make a difference, and make a difference not only in our lives, but in the lives of students that was there. And hopefully thinking it would be continued.
Yeah, that's honestly the unity that you describe with your class is amazing and inspiring. I think we definitely have something like that now. And the things you said are revolutionary and have definitely given way to a lot of the things that BSU now have been doing. So thank you so much for that, paving the way for us in those ways. So since you graduated from Culver, how active have you been with the college since you left?
I haven't. Okay. Now, well, I was down there. I was a speaker. Okay. And, a lot of the blacks who were there, and my roommate and a number of others, a lot of times they just said to hell with it because it was a racist environment. Okay. And so they didn't want to participate. They didn't want to be involved in it. And I remember looking at a brochure that I was sent, because they're going to ask you for money all the time. And so I'm looking at a brochure and they had all these people. And I remember addressing the issue with the school. I said, there's no people of color in this brochure. I said, now you talk about diversity. I said, but you're putting out brochures about the college and there's no people of color that's anywhere in here. Okay. And so in addition to addressing the issue with Millard Bondurant not being okay with the Athletic All-Star, Athletic Hall of Fame, and doing that, those are the things that I tried to address in terms of doing that. Now, you got to understand, I left Chicago and I was gone for about 30 years, okay? I was all on. I guess I'm the black sheep of my family. I just took off and did different things and tried to make a difference. So I was never close or never had that interaction. Now, I talked to someone named, and Mr. Alexander, okay? And he married one of my classmates, okay? He was a year or two ahead of us at Culver. And I don't remember ever having a conversation with him while I was at Culver. I think he left the second year and went into the service. Okay, but now we talk all the time because we live right around the corner. And once I moved back here 2 years ago, Justice Neville had told him that I was back, and he got in contact with me right away. And so we became real close friends. And he's been involved.
Excuse me, really quick. Sorry, I just want to
no problem.
Make you aware of the time.
Okay.
We just got a notification that there's only 10 minutes left in the video.
Then you need to ask me some questions, and I'll be very short.
So we understand you haven't been very involved in the college. However, we know you have been because you and I stay in touch, and
Right.
I do count.
That counts.
This will be the last question of the day. What advice do you have for current students now?
What was the question again? What?
What advice do you have for current students at Culver now?
I think what I was telling Gabe and everyone, the main thing is look at what you want in your life and move in that direction. Even if you don't know for sure, just stay on the path and let things come to you. Take advantage of opportunities. Take advantage of people. If they said, you could contact me, or if you go to a meeting, know who the people are you're talking to. Okay, know who they are and stay in contact. My whole thing is you need to connect. You need to have solid communications with folks, and you need to be around positive people doing positive things. And you need to be the catalyst by which things are going to happen, because you want to be able to look back and say, I tried to make a difference. And that's what you want to instill in someone else.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I wrote that down. That was
Okay.
super inspiring.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for speaking with us. I really appreciate it. Does any of my group want to say anything?
Just thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and especially that advice. Me being undecided, let things come to me. I really appreciate that.
There's no problem at all, Gabe. You just stay on the path, man. That's all you got to do, okay?
All right. Well, we can go ahead and sign off. Hope you have a great day, and I'll be speaking to you soon.
All right, then. Take care, all of you, and stay blessed, okay? Stay
All
safe
right.
and stay blessed. Take care.
All right.
Okay.